Before the first emperor raised his banner over the plains of China, before the rivers carved their names into stone, there was a mountain at the edge of the world, and inside it, a secret older than heaven itself. The mountain was called Huaguo, the mountain of flowers and fruit, and it rose from the eastern sea like a fist aimed at the sky. For ages uncounted, the winds moved around it, and the tides bowed before it, as though the ocean itself understood that something impossible was sleeping inside the rock. At the summit of that mountain sat a boulder, not placed there by man or God, but grown there, nourished by the breath of heaven and earth, since the first moment those two forces tore themselves apart from the void. It had absorbed 10,000 years of sunlight, 10,000 years of moonlight, 10,000 years of the invisible force the ancient sages called Qi, the living pulse of all creation. And then, one morning that no calendar could mark, the boulder cracked, and from inside it stepped a creature that heaven had not planned for. If you are ready to explore the gods that civilizations tried to erase, subscribe for weekly deep dives into forgotten pantheons. He was not tall. He was not fearsome to look upon, not at first. He was a monkey, bright-eyed, quick-limbed, his face a mask of curiosity and hunger that no cage had ever shaped. But the moment he opened his eyes for the first time, a light shot from them so fierce and golden that it struck the palace of the Jade Emperor himself in the highest realm of heaven, sending the celestial court scrambling in alarm. The emperor looked down from his jade throne, saw the source of that light, and made a decision that would haunt him across centuries. He dismissed it. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself it would pass. He was wrong on both counts, and the universe would spend 500 years reminding him of that mistake. This creature born of stone and starlight was Sun Wukong, and he had not arrived in the world to be dismissed. Among his kind on Huaguo Mountain, he rose without effort, the way fire rises, not because it chooses to, but because its nature permits nothing else. The monkeys of that kingdom had no king, and so they searched for one, and one morning they dared each other to leap through a waterfall to discover what lay hidden behind the curtain of falling water. All of them hesitated at the edge, calculating the cold, measuring the unknown. One of them did not. Sun Wukong dove through as though it were made of smoke, and on the other side he found a paradise carved by nature, caves shaped into palaces, streams running clear over jade-colored stones, a hidden world within the world that had been waiting for exactly this moment. He laughed, and that laughter echoed off the walls of the hidden grotto like the sound of a mountain finding its voice for the first time. The monkeys crowned him king that very day, and he accepted the crown not with humility, but with the easy confidence of someone who had never entertained the possibility of being second. But a king without immortality is merely a king who waits to die, and Sun Wukong was constitutionally incapable of patience with death. He crossed the sea on a raft of his own will, sought out the immortal sage Patriarch Subodhi in his mountain monastery, and demanded, not asked, demanded, to be taught the secrets of eternity. Most masters would have turned away a monkey who arrived uninvited and insisted on miracles as though they were debts owed. Subodhi recognized something in those golden eyes that gave him pause, a ferocity of spirit that was either divine or catastrophic, and quite possibly both at once. He taught Sun Wukong the 72 transformations, the power to become any creature or object beneath the dome of heaven. He taught him the cloud somersault, a technique by which a single leap could carry him 108,000 ely, a distance so vast it swallowed entire horizons whole. And then, when Subodhi saw the pride beginning to harden in his student's chest like cooling iron, he expelled him. Not in anger, but in the quiet certainty of a man who understands that some storms cannot be redirected, only survived. Sun Wukong returned to Huaguo Mountain, transformed in power, and found immediately that transformation was not enough. He needed a weapon worthy of what he had become, and so he descended into the underwater palace of the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, uninvited and utterly unafraid of the consequences. What he found there was a pillar, a great iron staff used by the ancient sage King Yu to measure the depths of the primordial ocean, a relic so massive that no being in that realm could so much as shift it, and so they kept it as furniture in a corner of the throne room. Sun Wukong wrapped his hand around it, and the staff shrank to meet his grip, resizing itself with the ease of a thing fulfilling its true purpose after an eternity of waiting. He named it Ruyi Jingu Bang, the staff of compliant gold, and it would obey him as no creature, no king, and no god ever would. With it in hand, he looked up at the sky and felt, for the first time, that heaven was not so far away after all. Heaven could not pretend otherwise, though for a time it tried. The Jade Emperor, seated on his throne above the clouds, received reports of the monkey's growing exploits and made his second catastrophic mistake. He tried to contain Sun Wukong by offering him a title. He summoned him to the celestial court and gave him a position, keeper of the heavenly horses, a stable master, and Sun Wukong accepted, not yet knowing the title carried no real power, not yet understanding they were managing him the way a river is managed with a small dam. When he discovered the insult buried inside the honor, his fury was not the fury of a wounded ego alone. It was the fury of a principle violated, of a truth betrayed. He returned to his mountain, declared himself the great sage equal to heaven, and planted a banner in the clouds where every immortal could read it. The Jade Emperor sent armies, and Sun Wukong defeated them. He sent his finest generals, and Sun Wukong defeated them too, laughing all the while, spinning his staff through celestial battalions like a storm moving through wheat fields. No weapon in the arsenal of heaven could touch him. He was not just powerful, he was something heaven had never built a defense against, because heaven had never imagined that anything could make such a defense necessary. Which deity from this pantheon unsettles you most? Tell me in the comments. Your insights add to the discussion. The court of the Jade Emperor turned at last to the Buddha, not a god of heaven's making, but a force older and quieter and more absolute than all the thunder of the celestial armies combined. The Buddha came to Sun Wukong not with weapons or threats, but with a wager, the kind of offer only the truly ancient dare to make. He placed his open hand before the monkey and said simply, "If you can leap beyond the boundary of my palm, then heaven is yours to rule." Sun Wukong, filled with the boundless power of his stone-born spirit, leapt to what he believed was the end of the universe, 5 immense pillars rising from a plane of absolute silence, and carved his name into the base of the tallest, so heaven would know he had stood there. Then he leapt back, triumphant, certain the throne of all creation was already his. The Buddha smiled, a small, terrible, ancient smile, and showed him his own hand. The 5 pillars were the Buddha's fingers. The universe Sun Wukong had crossed was the size of a thought held loosely in an open palm. In that moment, the invincible King of Heaven understood, with a silence deeper than any battlefield, that there were scales of reality he had not yet learned to perceive. The mountain fell. 5 elements, mountain, a prison built from the substance of creation itself and sealed with the golden script of the Buddha's own authority, descended upon him and held him there for 500 years. Not in darkness entirely. Not in silence entirely. But in stillness, which was for Sun Wukong the most devastating punishment ever conceived. He did not break. And in the enduring, something shifted inside the stone-born chest that had never known anything but movement and conquest, something quieter than pride, heavier than power, and more enduring than either. 500 years later, a monk named Xuanzang would pass by that mountain, would hear a voice calling from beneath the rock, and would remove a single slip of paper from the stone, and the mountain would open like a confession finally spoken aloud. The great sage would walk out into a world that had aged around him like a river curving around an unmovable stone. He was the same. He was entirely different. Power had always been his birthright. Wisdom had cost him everything. And the long road west, with all its demons and trials and distances that defied measurement, was the price heaven had set for proving that he understood the difference at last. The next Pantheon reveals its secrets next week. Stay subscribed. These deities demand to be remembered.